Dabo Swinney offers a warning to college football, and it's about NIL. I am going to get into this. I actually started this video, had a full video live stream going, and then something happened. This is the remake of it. I can't believe that happened. Welcome to Clemson Football Live. I'm Brian. I'm glad you're here. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe. And tell your friends and neighbors about it. Remember, it's free. So Dabo Swinney offers a warning about NIL. Now, he gave this message to the Clemson Insider and then the Outkick.com, which both of these sites, I'm not affiliated with it. I just like to say that for their benefit. They may not want to be associated with me, but this is where I got the story from. I saw it this morning, and I thought it was extremely important to talk about. So, this is what he said. The best thing for coaches in the kind of world we are in right now is for them to be employees. The worst thing is for them to be employees. This is not a world we want for 18-year-olds. I think we lost our way. Now, the wording of that was kind of confusing. The second part really clears up what he's talking about. They probably took mid-thought and threw it in here. He further added, I think the NIL is awesome. I really am for it. By the way, Jeff Scott told someone that I know that Dabo was actually for NIL. Just not the way that it's going now. Continue. I am all for enhancing the scholarship however you want, but I also understand the reality that 98% of these kids are not going to play in the NFL. That's very true. We need to educate our young people. I'll get to that more in a second. In this society, nobody talks about the value of an education anymore. I agree. C. Walt is in here. Thanks for getting back on here. And everybody else who was watching me just a second ago, I hope you'll hop back on, hit a thumbs up, drop a comment in the chat section or below the video. So Dabo Swinney, who I've disagreed with on certain things over the past few years, I agree with a lot of his sentiment here. Now, let's just go ahead and say something. No solution will be perfect when you're addressing the NIL. It's not going to be perfect. You know it, I know it, we all know it. There will be no perfect solution. But we know that the NCAA overreached on several occasions. One most infamously that is talked about is like Chase. One of my viewers here talks about Chase Young. He couldn't receive money to fly his family out to the Rose Bowl. Okay? That's ridiculous. If the university wanted to help his family fly out to the Rose Bowl, have you seen a ticket price for a plane? Have you seen how much a hotel room that's not in the slums? Have you seen how much it costs? It's a lot. So that's the type of stuff that we look at the NCAA and we say, we don't like you for this. We know that on those Saturday morning shows that we all grew up watching, they would focus on, and you'd be in the middle of celebrating. Oh man, our team's playing the big game today, and all of a sudden, sad music would come on in the background. Tom Rinaldi would be there. Well, today, the offensive lineman for UTEP State Technical Community College, his little brother is chewing on a corn cob in a dumpster. But the NCAA won't allow anyone to help them. Okay, we hate those stories. We're sitting there like, please feed this family. Please feed this family. We don't want this little boy living in a dumpster, chewing on a corn cob, fighting over it with a rabid dog. We don't want that. We're decent human beings. But what exactly happened with NIL? Well, now we have agents representing schools or the special interest of a school, reaching out to players and telling them that if you'll come to our school, we will pay you X amount of dollars. Oh, it's NIL. I believe it's Mike Loxley that's at Maryland gave an example that his third-string running back came to him and told him, hey, listen, I need $100,000 or else I'm leaving Maryland. And he was like, A third-string running back. And by the way, where did he get $100,000 from? What constituted that figure? You know? This is the mess that Swinney is talking about. Once again, there will be no perfect resolution to this issue. Before I go any farther, I do want to tell you that I have joined the College Huddle, which will launch sometime in April. There is a specific date in mind, but I am not going to mention that specific date just in case we need to make some adjustments. But I'm very happy to be part of this group representing Clemson. They could have reached out to anyone. They started with me, and I appreciate them. Shout out to the Ohio podcast and Eric Boggs. I do appreciate you inviting me. Here's just a small commercial. I'm super excited to be part of the College Huddle and get to collaborate with those guys and all of the podcasters and YouTubers who are representing other fan bases, other teams. It's going to be a lot of fun. Again, thanks, guys. Let's go back to this. So Dabo says, look, we got to do something. And then he starts offering some ideas. He says, maybe there's a 401k program that we can offer so these guys don't blow through all of this money. I'm not a massive fan of that. That basically says that until you're, of a certain age, all that money's going to be sitting there, but you're going to have to get close to death before you can access it. It's not a terrible idea, but it's not a great idea. An example that I can give you that's a real-life example, I was there when it happened. I used to work in fine dining at a very well-known fine dining restaurant. And an NFL football player from this upstate of South Carolina area, he came in. It was the off season. He was sitting there with his agent, and who I assume was a financial planner, and one of my coworkers were waiting on them. And it was like a Tuesday night. It was really odd. The place was kind of quiet. There wasn't a lot of people there. My coworker comes to me, and he's laughing. He said, "You're not going to believe this." He said, the NFL football player, who if I name, by the way, all of us would know, looked at his agent and said, "I want a Bentley." This guy had only been in the league like maybe 2 years. His agent told him, the guy beside him said, "You can't afford a Bentley right now. You don't need a Bentley right now." Unfortunately, and oddly enough, this guy was out of the league in the next few years because of injury. I hate that for him. But do you see there? See that? I see Bentleys everywhere. You have advisors around you, hopefully, who's filling your head full of wisdom instead of junk. Another example is a lady who was once dating and married to, now divorced, to a very well-known NBA player, said that when she started dating him, she found out that he was paying 30 to 35 over 30 phone bills for family members and his old boys that he used to live back at his old stomping grounds. He was paying for all of them because he had to give back. Because obviously he couldn't have dunked on people without hanging out with his buddies. That's a whole other subject for a different day. Here's the moral of the story. Also, one last story. I swear to you, I'm going to try my best not to go too far with this. Excuse me, I've shared with you that my dad used to drive for a very well-known charter company. So he drove for everybody in the book. I mean, I have signed basketballs, football, cards, everything. My dad drove for a lot of very well-known people in the pros and in college. He's got some great stories. I'm thinking about trying to have him on here and tell some of those stories. I think y'all would love it. But he said when he would drive these pro sports teams, that they would stay, obviously, at very nice hotels. And he said that mothers would drop off their daughters at the hotels to sit in the lobby to hopefully catch the eye of an athlete who is making a lot of money. And my dad said they were dressed in next to nothing. Said they were dropping off 18 and 19-year-old girls just hoping. People, Swinney is right here. People are going to come after these guys' money. And then these guys just being young, they're going to blow money. They're going to think, man, $2 million, that's easy to make. Then they blow through all of it, and suddenly they're like, whoa, hold up. You mean you can't make $2 million at a blink of an eye? No. We tried to tell you that was uncommon, but you were partying too much to listen. Here's the problem. Overregulation always gets people upset. For instance, I'm a law-abiding citizen. I'm not a rebellious person. But most people who doesn't like, and I'm going somewhere with this, most people who doesn't like having rules or authority, that normally fall into two different categories. One category, they were abused by authority. How many people watching this or listening to this, whether it's now, live, or later on, has been abused by authority? I have. I've been abused like you wouldn't believe in the workplace. I had people I even thought was my friends who put the biggest knives in my back. Laughed about it. And you get hurt. That's the word. It's okay to admit it. You got hurt. They victimized you. So you have that group. On the other hand, the far extreme side, you have people who are completely and totally lawless and rebellious. And you have to enforce good rules on them because they would victimize others. We get it. Okay? But we have seen bad authority, and we've also seen terrible people do their thing. That's the reason why a lot of us don't like regulation. Okay? That's me. With all of that said, we have to be careful over-regulating this thing because the NCAA was doing that stuff like they did with Chase Young. Oh, your parents wants to see you at the Rose Bowl and somebody's willing to pay for it? No. These stories you saw on Saturday mornings where a family was living in poverty and someone was willing to help them? No. Folks, that was terrible. That was ridiculous. But now, every restraint has been thrown off, and guess what? We have a third string running back who thinks he's worth $100,000 to go play for someone else. And it's totally okay. Dabo Swinney is right. Some people are going to come along, they're going to victimize these guys. They're going to take their money. The very mindset that came along and offered them the money will be in a different person, the same mindset that comes along and victimizes them. You know it and I know it. But you got to be careful over regulating it. Because if you put it in a 401k, these guys are going to have to be old and decrepit before they can access it. And then what about, here's one thing I want to talk about here. What about the players who is not overly poor or impoverished? What about the guy who just comes from the working family, who his family is struggling? They're not poor. They're not living in some shack. Dad has a decent job, but they don't have some country club spoon in their mouth. He's third string offensive lineman. I know I created that example, but I think you're smart. You understand it. No NIL deal for him. I've brought this up at other times. And listen to me, by the way, if this is the rules that's being allowed, people are being allowed to play by, I'm going to be very careful to criticize them because they're making a lot of money. Do you know who some of the top NIL earners are? People who have it great. Bronny James, LeBron James' son, do you think that he was hurting for money? He could have sat at his house and become an artist and did terrible art, and he'd been set for the rest of his life. I mean, I'm just making up something. He could have been a professional pencil sharpener, and he'd be better off. Hey, folks, once again, people are willing to give him a bunch of money. That's totally fine. That's okay. We don't need to be jealous of that, but I'm just saying, is he some poor kid? No. Shedeur Sanders, Deion Sanders' son, is he poor? No. The guy I just pointed out, and there's a lot of them, who they just come from families that's not overly, they're not impoverished, but they're just struggling. Inflation's terrible. Have you heard about it? That's who is getting punched in the face. So I don't know exactly what the answer is. You go from the NCAA policing every move that is ever made, even threatening to shut down some programs, even shutting down SMU. And now we have this? I may not agree with Dabo's, what he's offering, but I agree with him here. It has ruined the sport. It has ruined college football. It's going to create more victims than what we realize. Next up, and I want to offer this other thought. He said something right here that I think is a big deal. He said, I want to read this. Quote, "We need to educate our young people in this society. Nobody talks about the value of an education anymore." Okay? I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. John Sarian says the NCAA is no longer the authority for sports. Too many legal decisions have refused their authority in positions. I agree with you, and that should be done away with. But someone's going to have authority, and that authority is going to have to make good decisions and not victimize people like the NCAA did victimize people like Chase Young and others. The NCAA had their time. They were bad at it. They're done. But, like it or not, folks, we need a good authority in there. And sometimes that good authority is going to have to say no. What it should be saying no to is the agents. Anyway, do you think those agents care about these kids? No, they don't. They're like some activist that comes out, oh, we care about the people. Yeah, if the problem went away, your job would go away. Yeah, you don't want the problem going away. Different subject, different time. Education. Now, I would tell you this. I am someone who went back to school later on in life. I went to a very small school that very few people have heard about. It's a real school. It's regionally accredited. See, I go through all of that because I did my research. That's what you want, regionally accredited. But it's a small school. It's not impressive. Went back later in life after doing research and finding out what degrees would give me longevity and would take care of me and my family, most of all my family, financially well. I went back to school and I got a degree in marketing and management. And then after that, I went back to the same school and got an MBA. Now, I didn't graduate from an Ivy League school. I didn't graduate from some very well-known school. But I would tell you this, I worked my butt off and it has helped me. It helped me attain my goal. With that help, Tiger Too Deep said Tri-County Tech. I started at Tri-County Tech many years ago and then stopped. But folks, talking about education, how many of these football players who doesn't make it to the NFL, he's right, a ton of them don't make it to the NFL, no matter how good they are. What do you think their earnings is going to be off of a sociology degree? What do you think their earnings is going to be off of a Parks and Recreation degree? Or criminology? Folks, I'm not making light of it. I know what it's like to go to a small school that people hasn't heard of, and they're like, you went where? If you go to school, like it or not, and you're taking it from someone in their early 40s who's married with 2 children who has to provide for them and loves to provide for my family, I have to tell you this. You don't go to school to just discover yourself and enrich yourself. Do you know how many of those people I know who went to school for that, even has graduate level degrees, and then life kicked them in the midsection and made them realize nobody cares. It doesn't pay the bills. These football players going to school and getting the easiest degree they possibly can isn't helping them either. Stop acting like it does. Oh, he got that piece of paper. That piece of paper better be for something that provides a good, solid living with longevity. So if they graduate with a degree in knitting belly button lint into a basket, they might as well not went to school. Don't say that, Brian. It's reality. Let's join reality. I am tired of this. So if you're going to school and it's for a degree that doesn't pay well and it doesn't have longevity, Why are you going to school? Why are we surprised when a lot of these guys, I know one guy right now played in the 80s. He ended up a cook. I'm not saying a chef, a cook. At a local grease diner. Because his degree was nothing. So, you want to talk about educating the students? Make sure they're getting a degree that makes sense. Hey, son, have you paid attention to how much people in that field makes? Have you paid attention to how much, let me rephrase that, how much they don't make? Think that beautiful girl over there who's hoping you get into the NFL so she can fill her Instagrams with trips to Dubai and Italy and blah, 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 blah. Do you think she's still going to be with you when you don't make it to the big leagues and you're a sociologist with no job? You think that's going to happen, kid? Educate them that way too. Tell them the full story. Their education needs to mean something by their degree meaning something. And if a kid wants to go find himself, don't start with a worthless degree. You're wasting your time, you're wasting money, you're wasting an opportunity. And I know this is a very, very touchy subject for a lot of people. But wait till you have to find a job. That's the education you don't want to get. When you find out, you get educated, nobody cares. Nobody cares that you used to be a Clemson football player. That nobody cares that your degree in eyebrow waxing isn't a big-time degree that's going to pay you a lot of money. You didn't make it to the big leagues. I'm sorry, folks. Folks, I'm going to let you go on this. You know me. I've disagreed with Sweeney on the handlement of the team. I agree with him on this. I agree with him. I may not agree with his approach on everything, but I do agree. This is a problem. This is a problem. And if we don't let these guys know that the very people who are coming along and dropping money in their pockets, that will be the very same mindset that comes along and takes the money out and seduces them with every little thing that they want, and they don't know how to control their urges. Therefore, they'll end up broke. You want to find a miserable man? Find a man who was broke or struggling or just came from, a family that barely made it, and then they become rich and then they become poor again. I've met those guys. You want to talk about miserable? Holy snot. It's hard to talk about. Marquise Drayton. I have a funny story about D-Hop in school that's interesting and how much he valued the NFL over school, but he's back in class now online. Marquise, hit me up at my email address, and hopefully we can get, maybe we can talk about that. I'd like to hear about it. I know some people who knew him back in the day and still keep in touch with him. But I'd like to hear about that. Everybody, thank you so much for joining me. If you have not subscribed, I hope you will subscribe because it's free. Pass this along. Drop in the comment section. What do you think? Tell me why I'm right. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm indifferent. I want to hear your opinion. I want to hear what you think. Please pass this along. Remember, if you want to support the channel on a monthly basis, there is a join button below the video. It's either $3 or $5 per month. It's just either one. Which one you want to support me per month, support the channel and what I'm doing. If you appreciate it and you want to support it that way, you can do that. If you're on an Apple iPhone, you probably won't see that. But anyway, it's a very interesting time in college football. Y'all take care of yourself. I will see you soon. As always, go Tigers.